Alright, so in the midst of everything that's going on, I'm going to be talking about my experience at a PWI institute in college specifically. I'm mostly speaking from a black person's point of view because, that's the only point of view I kind of have, I guess, yeah. But, hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first thing is that you will run into people that disagree with you. So that means that, like, I've had a situation where, like, I tried to make friends and then, like, we were all in my room and then, like, I got into a heated argument, so I had to kick them out. So yeah, it didn't go that well. If you want a story time on that, just, show this video a little love. And then another thing about being black at a PWI is that people will assume that you're on affirmative action. For me, I'm not. I'm on a full academic scholarship because I earned it in high school, 4.0. So people will assume that you're on affirmative action if you are not white and if you come from a different background. And, like, I don't know how to elaborate on this one, but people will assume, like, that you're just, like, on some type of, like, financial aid because basically of your color, because they're not used to seeing, like, successful people of color. So yeah, that's another thing. Oh, and you know how, like, another point is, I'm a little nervous because it's weird talking to a camera. You'll be grouped with all of the black kids or people of color. So if you're with a group, people will just assume that all the black people know each other. That might not be the case. It might be the case because of how small it is. Because I go to a smaller college, so it's like a lot of us do know each other, but not like that. And then there is racism on campus, but there's a lot of people completely just oblivious to it. Like, they don't even realize what's going on. And it's just, yeah, so if you ever see that, go ahead and point it out. It's not your job to it's not your job to educate other people, but it's not even your job to do anything. But if you feel like you're in an uncomfortable situation, go ahead and call out that situation and tell them why, because that'll help them learn. And you're not technically educating them, but you're pushing them to, like, kind of forward their thinking of, like, okay, what I did, I have to be more sensitive because, and they're not used to seeing black people, so they're not used to, like, having to check themselves or whatever. And, like, yeah, and you shouldn't have to, like, code switch to be, like, no, just be yourself. Like, you shouldn't have to change because of a predominant group of people are there. Like, you shouldn't have to. Like, we need to normalize just different cultures and different vernaculars and different ways that we speak. If you want to speak your language, go ahead and speak your language. If you want to speak in Ebonics or slang, go ahead and speak in that. Because, like, embrace your culture while you're on campus. That's another thing, is because, like, there's a lot of erasure because of all of the systematic things that's been going on. Go ahead and just be yourself on campus. Like, you should, like, kind of just don't care what other people think. But if it's racist, call it out. Because, yeah, that we don't do that here. Like, nah. Racism got to go. And then another thing is that not every professor knows your background. So if you come from a school that has less resources because of systematic racism, that's another story. So yeah, but because of systematic racism, there are some schools who lack resources, but like there are students who go to these very expensive colleges. But and sometimes the professors expect you to know certain things that come from like richer high schools. Cause like so you're gonna spend a lot of time teaching yourself how to do a lot of things. So you're basically your own teacher. I know you're basically paying for an education that you have to teach yourself. It's weird. I know. I don't know how to get past that. You're gonna have to teach yourself how to do something. But talk to your professor. And tell them like, hey, I've never done this before in my high school, and sometimes they might be a little bit more understanding about your situation, or if like you've had less resources, go ahead and explain that. It's like, hey, I never did anything like this before, and like also like reach out to like your TAs or peer learning associates or whatever the school calls them, and tutors and all that, because they're there to help too. So like use your resources that you probably never had before. Like take advantage of the education that you're paying for, because you're not just paying to teach yourself, you're paying for others to help you teach yourself. I know. Don't. Look, it's a messed up thing, but you gotta do what you gotta do. And then my last point that I've written down, there's probably more points, and if you're watching this like in high school, about to go to a predominantly white college, go ahead and comment down below like your questions that you have, and I can try and answer them to the best of my ability. I can't speak for everyone. I can only speak from my experience because I'm the only person who experienced the way that I experienced it. Does that make sense? Well, yeah. But one thing to prepare for, I kid you not, is that people are going to make assumptions about you. That's whether, like, they are. Like, I've had professors, well, one professor, make assumptions about me because, like, I hung out with a certain group of people, so they just thought that, like, oh, you might not be, because, like, I'm black, so they're already going to assume that I'm kind of, like, more urban. I do live in an urban community, though. But, still, like, they're not used to seeing black people. Just remember that. That still doesn't make any of these, like, prejudice or racist assumptions okay. But, like, they're not used to seeing black people, and you're probably not used to seeing white people. So you gotta remember that we come from different backgrounds and try to reach an understanding of, like, where you stand, and make sure that, like, you kind of educate people. It's not your job to educate people, but you can still educate them. So yeah, I can't think of anything else. That's been my experience so far being at a predominantly white institution. There have been situations where it's like I do feel unsafe because, like I said, I live, like, my school's in, like, rural Pennsylvania, so there's a lot of Confederate flags, but, like, I'm not sure how they would react if I was to bring, like, Black Lives Matter, and, like, if I was to, like, represent that the way that they represent the Confederate flag. And I'm not trying to find out because, one, there's not like, it's in the middle of nowhere, so it's like, yeah. But I'm still, like, Black power everywhere. Like, of course I'm still gonna represent everywhere that I go, but I'm gonna be careful because I have to be, because of the way that America is built. And it's sad to say it that way, but yeah. So kind of be careful of, like, who you're around and, like, what you do. So, yeah. My mom was going upstairs, so it's weird talking. Anyway, if you like this video, like, comment, Like, comment, subscribe. Um, yeah. If you have any questions, comment them. I'll put my Instagram up here. Uh, Probably in the description. Um, if you have questions, feel free to. My DMs are open for questions. For questions, they're open for questions. Let me be specific. They are open for questions. So, yeah.